Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. We're digging in even deeper in this extraordinary late night, early morning mission in which Donald Trump, with military precision, is using U.S. Army Delta Force and with no leaks. It's interesting, Hakeem Jeffries complained that he had not been informed in advance, which the president is not legally or morally required to do. There are some stories that say that Jeffries had suspicions that Trump was about to do something and may have tried to warn Maduro anyway. I have not confirmed that. But the president has no authority, no requirement, and we clearly have the Trump doctrine, what I called earlier, the Don Roe doctrine. But the real question is what comes next. Joining us now, Eduardo Bittar is a Venezuelan pro-democracy activist and leader. He's widely known for his uncompromising opposition to Chavismo. That is the Marxist ideology that I believe infects the body politic completely in Venezuela. He currently serves as the general coordinator for a political movement in the country called Rumbo Libertad. Eduardo is close to conservative leaders such as the former Brazilian president Jair Bolsonaro, who hangs on to life in a communist gulag in Brazil, and his son Eduardo Bolsonaro, who has been an eloquent spokesman for his father and conveying to the world how the brutal communist dictatorship in Brazil is trying to destroy Bolsonaro. They have both recognized Bittar's movement as the only one that would actually change Maduro's regime. Eduardo Bittar has had a very impressive career of standing up for freedom, for democracy, ultimately having election. He's taken a very confrontational and radical stance against Chavismo. Because of those tensions, you were invited to participate in the presidential campaigns of 2012 and 2013, despite the fact you were not in any party. You have been physically and legally attacked and targeted by the Maduro regime. But what I really want to focus now is what comes next. So, Eduardo, welcome.
Thank you, Roger. Gracias por la invitación.
So we're going to, I think we're going to have an interpretation on this here. I'm going to ask you the questions in English. You're going to talk to us in Spanish.
Sí, Eduardo, voy a responder en inglés y vamos a responder en español y el traductor realizará la traducción. Perfecto. Thank you.
All right. Welcome, my friend. Look, many in the United States were impressed when Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Peace Prize, but President Trump made it very clear that whatever the future is of democracy and the transition from Maduro, that she was not, in his mind, a part of it because he said she didn't have the support within the country. In the meantime, it's kind of interesting to me that the vice president, who has not claimed the presidency, which legally she could do with Maduro absent, has remained as vice president, insists that Maduro is still president, and the high command of the current Marxist government, that would be Diosdado Cabello, Vladimir Padrino, Jorge Rodriguez, all heads of the last cabinet are still unharmed. The vice president's messages have been very vague and airy. She spoke about the need to fight against imperialism, to activate a decree of emergency and commotion and sovereignty of negotiation, but respecting the Bolivarian constitution, which gives the impression that in the high echelons of Islam, they have no clear idea what to do. What is clear is that she did not accept the position of the presidency, which I found very interesting. Eduardo, what do you make of this?
Eduardo, ¿cómo percibes la situación actual con lo que entendemos que en este momento es la vicepresidenta o presidenta en este momento de Venezuela, que de pronto también tenemos a Diosdado y a Padrino, y están diciendo que necesitan evidencia de la salud de Nicolás Maduro? Realmente ellos son los que continúan en el poder en Venezuela. ¿Cómo percibes, cómo analizas esta situación?
Bueno, gracias por la invitación. Yo creo que es muy importante entender que el presidente Trump ha hecho una cosa muy importante, y es lo mejor de todo esto, que es que
President Trump has done something very important.
El presidente Trump quitó de intermediario a la opoficción.
The President Trump removed the opposition, that fictional opposition, as the messenger, as the go-between, as the intermediary.
Una opoficción que tiene 27 años siendo la intermediaria con el chavismo para llegar a pactos, diálogos y acuerdos.
It is an opposition that for 27 years has been their intermediary with Chavismo to achieve pacts and agreements with the regime.
Es una falsa oposición que se ha encargado de torpedear la libertad y de todas las confrontaciones que hemos tenido por años en las calles.
It is a false opposition that for 2 decades has been in charge of opposing any grassroots momentum against the regime.
Por eso creo que la actuación directa del presidente Trump, quitando del medio a todos estos interlocutores, intermediarios, es lo más importante que ha ocurrido acá.
That is why I believe that the most important action that the President of the United States has taken is the removal of these so-called opposition. They're really intermediaries, and they are an obstacle to the freedom of Venezuela.
Ahora, como tú lo decías, es muy importante entender que no ha habido un cambio de régimen, no ha habido un cambio de la estructura narcotiránica en Venezuela, y hay que removerla.
As you mentioned, Mr. Stone, that there has not been a regime change. There has not been a change in the narco dictator political, we can call it, structure of the country.
Ahora se ha dado un paso muy importante para que ahora se produzca en Venezuela una guerra de tronos.
Now we have taken an important step within everything that's going on, so that there is a battle for the throne in Venezuela.
Es muy importante que se pueda entender que en Venezuela existen dos estructuras desde la llegada al chavismo al poder del lado del chavismo.
It is very important to understand that in Venezuela there are two political power structures, and they are both inclined towards chavismo in Venezuela.
El régimen cubano siempre anheló tener el poder en Venezuela y lo ha tenido a través de Maduro.
The Cuban regime always backs the opposition and the so-called opposition and the regime, of course, in Venezuela.
Entonces es claro que Maduro respondía directamente al régimen cubano, y hoy el poder ha vuelto a las manos del chavismo originario que llamamos 4 de febrero.
So it is very clear that Maduro responded to Havana, to the Cuban communists, and today Chavismo has inclined itself to the February 4th movement, sort of the original chavistas.
Y por otro lado, desde la llegada al chavismo al poder, el mismo chavismo creó una falsa oposición para sostenerse de manera indefinida en el poder.
And of course, since Chavismo came to power, Chavismo itself created an opposition, a fake opposition, which would help it maintain itself in power.
Entender que es una misma estructura de donde proviene Manuel Rosales, Enrique Capriles, Antonio Ledesma, Leopoldo López, María Corina Machado.
It is one same structure from which Ledesma, Juan Guaidó, Enrique Capriles, and María Corina Machado herself all come from and are part of.
Exacto.
Let me say, this is not different than the way the neocons infected both the Republican and Democratic parties. So they had their way on foreign policy with Hillary Clinton. They had their way with foreign policy with the Bushes. It was endless foreign war, plunder for American defense contractors, and lied us into war in Iraq and supported it on a bipartisan basis. So it is the same. It is very much the same. Where you're claiming there is a ruling elite, the Chavistas. In fact, all these oppositions and the CIA backs. They try to make the opposition so the opposition is controllable. They're using our tax dollars to prop up somebody who's actually not committed to democracy and free elections. I salute you, Eduardo, because you have a long history of activism. As a pro-democracy speaking, you were brutally attacked by members of a motorcycle gang of the ruling party's youth wing, thugs. Your motorcycle was burned. You were held captive for several hours. In 2017, after a decade of pro-democracy, pro-election advocacy and political organizing, you were forced to leave the country due to the political persecution. Shortly after you left your home country, the Maduro regime requested Interpol to release a red notice that they were charging you with terrorism. So you have been on the front lines of the opposition of Chavismo and the socialist opposition, which hides itself in all of the institutional political players. So I salute you for your commitment to real democracy and a real election. When you say battle for the throne, what you mean is that Venezuela needs to have a stable, free, and fair election system of true democracy that is not infected with one political ideology that is the repressor of freedom being in control of both parties.
Sí, Eduardo, si las elecciones no sirven bajo una tiranía criminal, ¿cuál entonces es tu verdadera solución y en qué se diferencia de todos los intentos fallidos del pasado?
Bueno, eso es una pregunta muy importante porque nosotros tenemos un plan perfecto para eso que tiene que entenderse en esta situación.
We have a very important plan which should be understood in a lot of detail.
Eso significa que estamos planteando la segunda independencia de Venezuela.
This means that we are forging Venezuela's second independence.
Lo que tiene que entender el gobierno de los Estados Unidos es que Venezuela es un territorio ocupado.
What the United States government needs to understand is that Venezuela is an occupied territory.
No existe ningún tipo de normativa, de legalidad, de instituciones en Venezuela.
There are no institutions and there is no legality in Venezuela.
Todo es una estructura del crimen y de una cantidad de elementos importantes que deben ser desplazados del poder.
These are all elements of crime.
Y lo que creemos realmente acá es entender que Venezuela no es un estado, Venezuela no es una república y que debemos restaurarla.
What we have to understand here is that Venezuela is not a state, Venezuela is not a republic, and we must restore Venezuela.
Si entendemos esto, sabemos que tenemos que instalar en Venezuela una alternativa real, una alternativa que se diferencie de lo que hemos tenido hasta ahora y podamos tener un gobierno especial en Venezuela.
If we understand this, we understand that we have to have an alternative to what we have had so far in Venezuela. In other words, we need to have a real government.
Ese gobierno debe tener una misión especial, una misión de entenderse con el gobierno de los Estados Unidos de manera perfecta y sobre todo de pacificar el territorio.
That mission of that new government should be a mission of pacifying the territory and of having perfect communication with the United States.
No ha existido hasta hoy dentro de la política venezolana una persona que ha tratado por años de acercarse al personal, a la gente del presidente Trump, como lo he hecho yo en los últimos tiempos desde que salí de Venezuela en 2017.
Since 2016, there has been no one who has tried to have that connection with the U.S. government, with President Trump in this regard.
Mi misión clara ha sido evitar que se cometan errores sistemáticos.
My clear mission has been to make sure that systematic mistakes do not continue happening.
Desde el 2017, la persona pionera en entender mi narrativa fue Eduardo Bolsonaro.
The pioneer in understanding my narrative since 2016, 2017 was Eduardo Bolsonaro, the son of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro.
Nosotros dijimos claramente que no íbamos a reconocer a Maduro.
Eduardo, una pausa.
We'll be right back to finish this scintillating conversation. Don't go away. Listen to the Roger Stone Show. It is a page of history. President Donald Trump said the United States would now temporarily oversee Venezuela after he took down the narco-terrorist, communist, Chinese, and Cuban propped up Maduro in Venezuela. But the United States would run the country during a transition period, pledging to stabilize the country, restart oil production after 2 years of corruption and economic collapse. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth underscored this mission stands in stark contrast to the past nation-building failures like the failed war in Iraq, for example, calling this a strategic operation that protects U.S. interests without prolonged war or U.S. troop casualties. What's what makes Donald Trump America first and not a neocon? President Trump's shown what America first foreign policy is all again, removing the socialist cancer in Latin America without a costly intervention designed to enrich military contractors. This is one of the reasons why some are disturbed by his comments warning Iran of American action, but the president doesn't telegraph his punches, and he didn't telegraph this one. We're talking to Eduardo Bittar. Eduardo, here's my question for you. Structurally, in the immediate aftermath here, we clearly do not want Vice President Delcy Rodriguez to try to continue to run a government. What kind of transition structure do you see temporarily, perhaps, going forward for the country?
Eduardo, ¿qué tipo de estructura de transición en este momento percibes o ves, por lo menos a corto plazo, que sea la más efectiva para el país?
Yo creo que es importante que la estructura que suceda a lo que existe hoy tiene que ser una estructura verdaderamente patriótica, alineada con la situación.
I believe that the structure should be a structure that is patriotic and aligned with the situation.
Porque lo que tenemos hoy indudablemente es el mismo chavismo en el poder. Lo que ha habido es un reajuste de fichas.
Because what we have today is really chavismo in power. It's just that the pieces have been readjusted.
Yes, we understand. I guess my question is, what do we do going forward? We have to have some governmental structure, otherwise they will continue to try to keep the one that is in place. The president made some comment about leaving Delcy Rodriguez in place if she did as she was told. There were some more conciliatory comments from her earlier, and then she kind of turned hard left back to her Chavista roots, as far as I could see. But we have to, at this point, it has to be more than vague. It has to be more precise. The real question is, how quickly can the country get to a fair, free, and honest democratic election to choose its future leadership? To me, that's the fundamental question, and anything the Trump administration does to transition has to set up the structure to make sure that happens, as well as, yes, it is about the oil. Getting the oil to American companies deprives this oil of going to Russia and China, which is a huge strategic advantage. So, and I underscore, having read much of the research on Maria Corina Machado, it's very clear to me that she is not who she says she is. She, as the president said, she's very nice. Seems like a very nice woman. At least that is her persona. She was given the Nobel Peace Prize. She was, like you, forced into exile, lest she be prosecuted by this Marxist regime. And then we have the added benefit of stopping the deadly flow of cocaine into the United States, and now some of that cocaine laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl, generally speaking, comes into the country through Mexico, which it comes via China. It's one of their biggest moneymakers. It is a huge operation. So these are two big wins for the United States under Donald Trump, but no endless foreign war a la Bush. And I do hope that Eduardo Bittar is very much involved in any transition, and that his party, ultimately his political movement, has a chance to compete in free, fair, democratic elections. And I salute you for being with us today in the Roger Stone Show.
Muchas gracias, Eduardo. Agradecemos mucho tu tiempo. Gracias.
Gracias a ustedes.
being a translator for Roger Stone, you've got to have a great memory. Thank you for joining us. We will be back with former Senator Bob Torricelli, longtime supporter of the democratic opposition in Iran. Could you tell us about what's really going on in that country and what Americans' options are? Former Senate Foreign Relations Committee member Bob Torricelli joining us, coming right back on the Roger Stone Show.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.